Hello, I'm Esther Gidu. It's Tuesday, January 31st. This is Africa 54.
Pope Francis arrived in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Tuesday at the start of a 6-day Africa trip that will also take him to South Sudan. We have extensive coverage. A tropical cyclone hits Madagascar, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. And in health, the Atlanta-based Carter Center marks progress in the fight against Guinea worm infections.
Pope Francis landed in Kinshasa Tuesday, where he will start a 6-day visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan. He is expected to bring a message of peace to countries stricken by poverty and conflict. Aid groups are hoping the pontiff's trip will shine a spotlight on some of the world's forgotten conflicts. But Francis' trip will also bring him face-to-face with the future of the Catholic Church. Africa is one of the only places in the world where the Catholic flock is growing in terms of practicing faithful as well as fresh vocations to the priesthood and religious life. That news makes this trip particularly important as Pope Francis nears the 10-year mark in his papacy. Local Catholics are excited over the Pope's visit.
C'était des rêves.
There were dreams, drawings, discussions, explanations, and finally, through the Congolese ingenuity of Congolese youth, we were able to make this huge project that you are now seeing in 3D in 360 degrees.
Indeed, there are people who chartered planes to come here because there were so many of them. It was not necessary for each of them to pay for a ticket, but instead to charter so that the plane could bring them here. For example, Lubumbashi and Kolwezi, and from everywhere else. When we went to Kananga, we saw that there was a lot of religious men and women who boarded the plane to come to this grandiose event.
It was dirty here before the Pope's arrival. There was water everywhere. But now look, it looks beautiful. Even the lights were not there, but now they have installed everything.
Congo, France's first stop, is the African country with most Catholics. Half of its 105 million people are Catholic. The country counts more than 6,000 priests, 10,000 nuns, and more than 4,000 seminarians, 3.6% of the global total of young men studying for priesthood. On Wednesday, the Pope will celebrate Mass and meet victims of violence from the eastern part of the country, which is experiencing recurring fighting between rebels and government troops. Anastasie Tudiesh has our report from Kinshasa.
Here, 150 co-celebrants, more or less, are expected. While the Holy Father will preside, some cardinals will accompany him. We have also multiplied ramps so that it requires as little effort as possible from him.
It's only a few hours now before Pope Francis arrives in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On this 12,270 square feet podium, the pontiff will celebrate Mass on February 1st. It will be the first Mass of his first visit to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Nearly 3 million faithful are expected at this former airport, which has been spruced up for the occasion.
The Church of Congo, the presidency and the government work closely to make this happen, and the Church works in close collaboration with the Vatican too. Upon his arrival at the Njili airport, the Holy Father will be welcomed by the Prime Minister, who will then escort him to the National Palace, where he will meet the President.
It will be a historical religious event, and for the Archbishop of Kinshasa, a visit with several dimensions to it.
Quand le pape visite un pays, il vient.
When the Pope visits a country, he comes as head of state as well as the head of the Catholic Church. The Congolese people live in a country in crisis that takes many shapes and forms. Naturally, in such context, the Pope's visit can only be hoped for as a visit of comfort for the suffering people.
The Congolese people have mastered the art of transcending through songs and dances two indispensable ingredients of Mass the Congolese way. The choir members have been rehearsing for over a year.
There will be 700 of us, which was popular songs. And since the Mass takes place here in the Congo, here in Kinshasa, we will sing in our 4 national languages, Lingala, Swahili, Kikongo, and Shiluba. And we are also going to sing in French, our country's official language. We will also be singing in Italian to make him feel welcome.
On the eve of the pontiff's arrival, joy and hope are building up in Kinshasa tonight, 37 years after John Paul II last visited the country. Anastasie Tudiesh for VOA News, Kinshasa.
The president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, is ending a 2-day trip to Zimbabwe on Tuesday. His visit follows a tour of African countries by Sergei Lavrov, foreign minister of main ally Russia. David Doyle has more.
Zimbabwe laid out the red carpet for Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko on Monday. He was welcomed at Harare International Airport by President Emmerson Mnangagwa, alongside dancers and cheering crowds. Lukashenko's 2-day trip comes on the heels of a tour of African countries by Sergei Lavrov, foreign minister of Belarus's main ally, Russia. Lavrov was attempting to shore up support for Russia's military actions in Ukraine. Belarusian state broadcaster Belta said main bilateral talks would take place on Tuesday. There will also be a ceremony to mark a Belarus-backed program of mechanization on Zimbabwean farms.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. The Dadaab refugee camp in Kenya, Africa's biggest refugee camp, is about to get even bigger. Kenya is approving more land for the crowded camp to help relieve congestion. The expansion comes as thousands of Somali refugees fleeing record drought and hunger arrive in Dadaab in search of relief. Juma Majanga has our report.
Zamzam Omar says she used to hear rosy stories about life in refugee camps in Kenya. She arrived at the Dadaab refugee camp with her 5 children 6 months ago after a bomb attack near their Mogadishu home injured and traumatized her 10-year-old son. But life here has not been what she expected.
We were given only food tokens. We have not been recognized and received refugee IDs or anything else.
Omar is among the nearly 100,000 refugees who have fled to Kenya to escape drought and conflict in Somalia. But because Kenya has banned the registration of new refugees at the crowded Dadaab camp, new arrivals have had to live in temporary settlements outside the camp with limited amenities.
Most of these lands where they are settling lack the basic services. For example, there are no wash services. What I mean is that there is no water, there is lack of latrines, sanitation is an issue there. Of course, there are no schools and there are even no hospitals. So the situation there is bad.
The Kenyan government has periodically threatened to close the Dadaab camps entirely, but now, to ease congestion, the Kenyan government has approved the reopening of 2 sub-camps that were closed in 2016, E42 and Cambios. Aid agencies say the move is long overdue.
WFP is already alerting us that their capacities are being overstretched because all those people are coming to already existing camps, most of which are now reaching 100,000 each. Each of the camps now is close to 100,000 each, whereas the capacity is way below that. And WFP is telling us that by February, they won't be able to add more people to the list, which leads us to the necessity of opening new camps.
Omar says she is hopeful.
I would like space in that new camp where I can get security and basic services like water, shelter, and education for my children.
Currently, Kenya's government says only registered refugees will be settled in the new sites. So, unregistered refugees like Omar wait and hope new arrivals will eventually be recognized as refugees too. Kenya is already one of Africa's top refugee hosting countries with over 500,000 refugees, mainly from Somalia and South Sudan. Juma Majanga for VOA News, Dadaab Refugee Camp, Kenya.
Tens of thousands of homes have been destroyed and at least 30 people are dead after Madagascar's first cyclone of 2023 made landfall earlier this month. VOA Managing Editor Vincent McCory has more.
At least 30 people have been confirmed dead since Cyclone Chinoso hit Madagascar, according to authorities. Another 20 are missing and 37,000 have lost their homes since landfall in January 19th. Drone video from UNICEF has shown how large parts of the capital, Antananarivo, have flooded after the cyclone triggered heavy rains. Madagascar's Office for Risk and Disaster Management said assistance began on Monday in affected communities. Chinoso is the first for 2023 of an annual series of storms that typically form in the Indian Ocean off the coast of the island nation. In recent years, Madagascar and Mozambique have been repeatedly hit by severe storms and cyclones that experts say are being exacerbated by climate change. Homes, infrastructure, and crops have been destroyed and large numbers of people displaced. In January and February last year, 4 major storms hit Madagascar. At least 138 people were killed, 124,000 homes destroyed, and around 130,000 people displaced. Vincent McCory, VOA News, Washington.
The Spanish Coast Guard rescued a total of 171 migrants off the Canary Islands from 3 different stranded boats on Monday. 55 of them were transported to Gran Canaria, including 2 women. Red Cross Regional Chief Antonio Rodriguez says all of the migrants were in good health. Another Spanish Coast Guard vessel transferred 116 sub-Saharan migrants to Fuerteventura Island after locating 2 stranded boats with 99 men, 14 women, and 3 babies. Each year, thousands of people leave North Africa to make the perilous journey to Europe in search of a better life. The Human Rights Watch Executive Director for the Africa Division just wrapped up a visit to South Sudan, where she met government officials to discuss the worsening human rights situation in the country. Mausi Shegun says she was disappointed by lack of commitment from South Sudanese officials to address widespread abuses in the country. She says repressive laws has shrunk civic space in South Sudan, forcing journalists, human rights activists, and defenders to self-censorship.
I think the perception that we came away with was that the commitment is not real. It is not backed by genuine steps. As a matter of fact, we heard a lot of excuses why there has been no justice mechanism, including with domestic courts. A senior government official actually said to us, we don't even trust our judges. And so for me, I took away the sense that they believe that they should say the right thing because they know that, almost everyone, including the South Sudanese people, care about justice and accountability. But it is not a priority for those in the transitional government. And that really is disappointing.
How is your organization going to move forward with this situation? Because it appears like year after year, we are hearing the same stories from South Sudan.
The first thing is we continue to document the crimes, the serious crimes, international crimes that have been committed. We continue to document the abuses because, justice, the arc of justice, it goes very far. It may not be today, it may not be tomorrow. We don't want the excuse that there are no records. Secondly, like I said, We will continue to advocate with the interlocutors, not just the South Sudanese government, those who can influence the government, including the African Union, like I mentioned, including IGAD, neighboring countries, the international community, the United Nations, and I would add the Troika, the countries that have been, very close to monitoring and supporting the transition in South Sudan, and we will continue to pressure them to prioritize the issues of justice.
There was supposed to be a hybrid court formed in South Sudan to try those who have been suspected of committing violence during the 2013, fighting in the country. Did the government speak to you about when and how this hybrid court is progressing?
It was, I think, a surprise to hear senior government officials continue to maintain that the book is on the table of the African Union Commission. And what one very senior government official said to us was that the revitalized agreement talks about the African Union Commission setting out guidelines for the operationalization of the court, and that those guidelines are yet to be transmitted to South Sudan. And so that all of their efforts are stalled until they have those guidelines, because they don't know how to go about it. Although when we do speak with the African Union, they insist that the book is back with the South Sudanese government. To do exactly what, we're not sure. So there is some book passing that is going on, and we intend to get to the bottom of it.
That was Mausi Shagun, the Human Rights Watch Executive Director in the African Division, speaking to VOA's John Tanza. Let us know what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come, Liberian President George Weah makes a key decision amid rising poverty in his country. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linor Moudou, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
From around the world, let's go.
In other news, the Chinese embassy in Addis Ababa says a Chinese national was killed in Ethiopia's Oromia region. Beijing is now ordering its citizens in Ethiopia to evacuate from high-risk areas. The embassy says 9 Chinese citizens came under attack on Monday evening in Gebre Guracha, about 160 kilometers north of the capital. The Secretary General of South Africa's governing African National Congress Party, Fikile Mbalula, is asking top officials to declare a national state of disaster to end severe electricity blackouts that is wreaking havoc across the country. And a former Nigerian Deputy Senate President, Ike Ekweremadu, 60, is on trial in London, along with family members for an alleged organ harvesting. Ekweremadu is accused of, alongside his wife, daughter, and a doctor, of bringing a 21-year-old man from Nigeria to have his kidney removed. Liberian president and former international football star George Weah says he will run for a second term in October, despite criticism from the opposition that he has failed to deliver for his country. Hondiho has more.
The general elections are scheduled in Liberia in October 2023 to elect the president and House of Representatives. The incumbent president, George Weah, is eligible for a second term. The former international football star announced Monday that he would seek a second term, in rejecting mounting criticism that he is out of touch with a population facing steep price rises and food shortages.
My fellow citizens, I will be coming to you shortly to ask you to renew for a second time the mandate that you gave me 6 years ago. Young people, seize the day, seize the moment, seize the opportunity. This is your time. This is our time.
He also defended his first term, saying, "Let me assure you that the state of our nation is very strong."
As we stand here today, let me assure you that the state of our nation is strong. The state of our nation is stable. The state of our nation is vibrant. The state of our nation is useful. The state of our nation is peaceful and secure. We intend to keep it this way.
Weah came to power in 2018 after winning an October 2017 election, capitalizing on his iconic status after becoming the first and only African to win football's most prestigious individual award, the Ballon d'Or, in 1995. In December last year, hundreds took to the streets protesting economic hardships and President George Weah's prolonged absence from the country. And anger over his government's management of the economy has grown as Liberians grapple with rising food and fuel prices linked to the Ukraine war and the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic.
We want a Liberia where every Liberian will be guaranteed the same opportunity. What you do with that opportunity is up to you, but you'll be guaranteed the same opportunity. A Liberia where we will stop the suffering, where we will stop the stealing. If you supporting me because you want your chance to play big shot or you want your chance to chop, you supporting the wrong person.
Fighting corruption had been one of Weah's major campaign promises, but in September he accepted the resignations of 3 close allies after the United States accused them of corruption. Graft remains endemic in the country, with the watchdog Transparency International ranking Liberia 142nd of 180 countries in its 2022 Corruption Perception Index, released on Tuesday in Berlin. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
As the World Health Organization commemorated World Neglected Tropical Diseases Day on Monday, the Atlanta-based Carter Center is marking continued progress in the fight against Guinea worm infections. VOA's Ken Faribault reports.
Guinea worm infections numbered in the millions in the 1980s. For 2021, just 15 new cases were reported, and in 2022, a total of 13.
Which does not sound like a big reduction, but when you're dealing with very small numbers in very remote areas, we take it as a huge step forward.
Adam Weiss is the director of the Carter Center's Guinea worm eradication program. When his organization, founded by former U.S. President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind, began spearheading the effort to rid the world of guinea worm in 1986, the parasite existed in 20 countries. In 2022, just 4 countries reported new guinea worm infections in humans.
We had 6 human cases in Chad, 5 human cases in South Sudan, and 1 in Ethiopia, and 1 in the Central African Republic on the southern border with Chad.
It was good news and at the same time not so good news.
Dr. Zirahun Tadase Kebraselassie is the Carter Center's senior country representative in Ethiopia, which is on the cusp of complete eradication.
We are doing surveillance by moving from house to house in each and every village, which have been historically reporting cases. So we found only 1 person, and we found him before its clinical manifestation, which means we suspected that this could be a guinea worm case. We kept him in a facility called Case Containment Center.
The Carter Center also provides financial incentives for people to report any potential guinea worm infections. That, coupled with a program to educate people on the importance of safe drinking water, as well as continued parasite monitoring efforts, is driving progress on the path to complete eradication.
We have to get rid of all cases for 3 consecutive years.
One of the biggest setbacks to declaring the world free of guinea worm was its discovery in domesticated animals and wildlife.
It was a punch to the gut back in 2012 when we first started seeing infections.
But after years of dramatic increases in the number of dogs and cats in remote villages carrying the parasite, 2022 showed encouraging results.
The last several years, we went from several thousand animal infections to this year being just over 600 animal infections in the world.
But the magic number in the overall eradication effort is 0 cases in both humans and animals.
We have to get rid of it from all hosts in order to meet the definition of eradication.
We are like in the last mile, which is the most difficult one.
If the effort is successful, guinea worm would be only the 2nd disease eradicated from the planet, but the first through prevention, since there is no medicine to treat infections and no vaccine to prevent them. Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Chicago.
That's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.